From top to bottom, it was an absolutely brilliant operation, and it was agile. Had the adroitness that we don't see with the Russians. The Russians are using heavy firepower, heavy ingenuity to some extent to ramp up, which worries me, the new ballistic missiles and some of the new drones, and using just loads of people. And I think that if Ukraine were to do something ingenious somewhere else, which would really hurt the Russians, you've got to get at the personality of Putin. But more important, you've got to get the personalities round him. The Shoigus and others, the people, the military oligarchs, the securitocracy that really keep him in place. Because if Putin goes, another one will come along. But if you could take out 2 or 3 of them, take them off the board of play, I think things will change very, very much indeed.
And from your perspective, how Ukraine can take away these people around Vladimir Putin? Do you mean the physical elimination of such people around Vladimir Putin's inner circle?
Well, if I was somebody who was considering it, all the options, they wouldn't want somebody like me blabbing at the mouth about what the possibilities are. So I'm not going to. And I think that is the really clever thing. And I think that psychologically, the Ukrainian command, civil and military, has shown an astuteness that sometimes even their Western backers lack. Keep them guessing, frighten them, make them have bad nightmares and bad daymares as well. And that would be the approach to take. And as Russia uses its obvious threat, I don't say blackmail. By the way, we will hear a lot more about tactical nuclear weapons. We will hear a lot more, unfortunately, and there's a question now if they've been really using it, about chemical weapons. And they will keep putting on the pressure for kinetic warfare. To what end, I do not know, because one thing is absolutely clear. Russia cannot take the whole of Ukraine without its whole regime. That is the regime of Putin, and the legacy, the coming out of the Soviet Union would be in question, would be up for grabs. And guess who understands that better than anybody else? It's not America, the United States, it's the People's Republic of China. People's Republic of China is now, we talk about America, we talk about Trump, but it seems to me it's absolutely the dominant feature. By seeming to stay silent, but seemingly also extremely active. It is really, in the power politics that's going on at the moment, it really is the big power. Not exclusively the big power, but one of the very, very big powers. And by the way, there's been a remarkable document, or non-document, from the British Foreign Office, I think, which suggests that, and perhaps we can discuss that now. And that was what the document, which was supposed to come out with the national security strategy, which was extremely coherent, very well put together, and brief and absolutely to the point, saying how you've got to defend at home, defend with your allies, prepared to defend in depth, defend your rear in order to protect your front. Very, very good argumentation. That came out following the British, much praised than the British realised, Defence Review. Very elegant, very well expressed document. But the third document, which was supposed to come out on the 24th of June, the first day of the NATO conference, was a thing called the China Audit. Now, it's on Parliament's website. Look what Mr. Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, the Foreign Minister, said. We cannot publish this because it's so sensitive and the implications are so dangerous. We've got to continue the process of auditing China. We can't wish China to go away. It is very, very important. Friend, foe, potential competitor, potential ally in things like science, but undoubtedly the dominant military power now. The Brits are absolutely clear that in so many areas, China is ahead of America now, probably in hypersonics, certainly getting into quantum computing, space, a lot of cyber warfare. And they're calling the shots. And if you read even the latest New York Times appreciation of what is going in Moscow, Moscow is becoming, the Americans, the McDonald brands have gone, and the Chinese have moved in. Putin would hate to be told that. His mother Russia, the great soul of Russia, resurrecting the image of Peter the Great. I've just been talking to the Swedish ambassador. You can imagine how the Swedes feel about that. No, it's not. It's becoming very, very gradually, or not so gradually, a satrap, an offshoot, enormous one, albeit, of China. China is running this one.
Just mentioned about China, and I should cover this topic with you right now, because Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told the European Union top diplomat this Wednesday that China does not want to see a Russian loss in Ukraine because it fears that the US would then shift its focus to China, according to the South China Morning Post. What is your reaction to this revealed real position of China in this war?
Well, it's very difficult to penetrate the ambiguity, looking one way, looking at the other of China. And I think I do look at what Lamy said, and Lamy said the Brits, with a long history in China, are just not good enough. We don't have enough Mandarin speakers in our intelligence and foreign services. We've really got to understand China is weighing up the odds at the moment, and this is absolutely clear. And they're weighing up the odds, not in the wake of what's going on or in relation necessarily directly to what is going on in Ukraine. It's what happened in Iran. They're looking at the success or otherwise of America with its with its bunker-busting bombs against a complex enemy like Iran, the very real threat, although a lot of its missiles, a lot of its firepower was reduced by Israel, they could still get through. And the question is, as you know what I'm going to say next, does this bring the option of China using a military operation to retake Taiwan closer, more likely, or does it make it more remote, or will they do it by other means? That is a very, very big question now. And that's, I know, what the American military are having to think. I wonder whether they can concentrate the mind of their commander-in-chief, which seems, sorry, to be quite... I hope I'm being quite factual. The mind of the commander-in-chief of the USA seems to be absolutely all over the place, particularly if you analyze his language.
Let's cover also our breaking news right now. A phone call between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and US President Donald Trump has been concluded. This conversation lasted more than 40 minutes. Both Trump and Zelensky discussed the escalation in Russia's air attack on Ukraine and the possibility of the US providing Ukraine with additional air defense systems. As we know, recently, Pentagon decided to halt military shipments of anti-aircraft systems to Ukraine and some missiles. What is your reaction to this development, and do you have any kind of hope that after today's conversation, Trump would finally direct Pete Hegseth to provide Ukraine with this anti-aircraft systems and missiles for air defense systems?
Well, air defense systems are absolutely essential, and the medium to long term imperative for Ukraine is it's got to develop its own air defense systems along with the Europeans. That has to be done. I think it is starting now. The Anglo-Ukrainian drone production is getting underway, and a lot of British effort, and thank goodness the British are not trying to do it in Britain. They're trying to do it in the region and in Ukraine itself. Put that away. Your question was absolutely very precise, because you said the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth. Hegseth seems to be running his own campaign, almost in spite of Trump, because Trump doesn't like violence. He doesn't like long wars. He doesn't like, they would acknowledge that China doesn't want Russia to be defeated. China wants that not to help the world. It wants it to help China. And I think that this is where Europe really does come into the argument. And I won't divert into that because I want to answer your question. Hegseth himself has stopped shipments, I think, on his orders to Ukraine. I think this is the 5th time. I may be corrected on that. And it looks as if he and Elbridge Colby, his number two, who is highly ideological in MAGA, and then we get behind them Bannon and the family of Tucker Carlson and his son, who are involved in this. Now, are they running their own private MAGA policy? It's beginning to look like it. And I think that that's where there's hope. Because remember, it's not people like Tulsi Gabbard. Get it out of politics. I wonder what the serious military advice is. And I think Trump is more and more beginning to listen to his military advisors. And that's why they would say, as the rest of NATO is saying, apart from Hungary, of course, you can't let the cities of eastern Ukraine, particularly, to be smashed to bits in this way, because it's not your interest. It's more of a problem for us because it emboldens China as well as Russia. And funny enough, and rightly, Trump is very, very fixated on the big one, is China and the Indo-Pacific, and I think that will hold sway. Trump doesn't like to admit he's wrong, though, and that's why it'll take a bit of doing, but it's really what the core alliance inside European NATO is doing, and it's pretty clear how core that is. And I include Germany in that, and as in its own way, but it's you can have MAGA putting America first, but La Belle France is always first. But they think intelligently about it. But it is that arc which starts with Britain, Belgium, the Netherlands, and then you go right round through the Joint Expeditionary Force. And bad news for Putin, the Joint Expeditionary Force alliance is a very real one, and they feel very, very much under threat from him. So I don't think he'll be able to declare a triumph, like the old Roman emperors. I don't think he'll be able to declare a triumph in his lifetime.
Let's also cover more deeply Pete Hegseth's position, because according to today's NBC News article, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was the only person who decided to halt shipments of some air defense missiles to Ukraine, despite it's his own military analysis that the aid wouldn't jeopardize U.S. readiness. How do you see the main reasons behind Pete Hegseth thinking about this? Are such reasons only so-called military one, or also there are some political reasons?
But Pete Hegseth isn't the Clausewitz or the Sun Tzu of our time. Whatever he may paint himself as, he is not a great military thinker, nor is J.D. Vance. He's a loyalist. He's a Fox News creature, which would endear him initially to Trump, and he looked like the acceptable face of Trump too, which was largely supplied from the MAGA Fox News stable, as we know it. You can point to them, but he's got to be careful. If Hegseth is seen really to belong to the camp of, say, Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's against everything as far as I can make out, that would annoy Trump. Trump doesn't like people being overmighty. It is like, as in your country, as in my country, the great medieval kingdoms where you had boyar, you had counts, you had people always saying to the government, "I'm going to be more powerful." Than in English history, you call it overmighty subjects. Hegseth is looking now, the poppy is too tall, like an overmighty subject of MAGA. And that's why I think he's got to be careful. And I think Trump is, and he will be informed, and he'll be informed by the Trump family, which we see more and more, the boys. They are more and more important. And, look out of the right corner of your eye. Trump is going to listen a lot, increasingly, what MBZ and MBS the rulers of the UAE and Saudi Arabia are saying. And I haven't gone off one. The defense link is terribly important. And if they think that Hegseth is too headstrong, too egocentric to be tolerated, I think that will be the end of him. I'm not sure how long he goes. If there is and it could happen anywhere, but I suspect it's going to happen in the Middle East. If there is a military setback for America, just a tactical one, I think Hegseth goes.
And also there was an information about the Elbridge Colby, Hegseth closest ally in the Pentagon. He's
the ideologue. He really is. Yeah, God, yeah.
He supported this plan to hold military shipments to Ukraine. Do you see that was a device from Mr. Colby to hold this shipment, or do you see this as a decision was made alone by Pete Hegseth?
Oh, Colby would have been in it. This is part of the form of Colby. Colby hates Europe. He thinks America should be out of Europe. You see, what is so interesting, it's the difference between Trump, Rubio, people like Mike Pompeo, think of the first Trump administration. They have no interest and no love for Europe. Curiously, Trump does, because the origin of the Trump family, and particularly he's greatly attached to the legacy of his mother, who came from Scotland. And that's why with Trump, and they're about to go wrong with this, I think, the MAGA people, Trump has it's irrational. Well, it's not. It actually does make sense when you put it together. He has huge affection for the British royal family. We saw the way he revered the late Queen. Apparently, he's always talking about he respects Charles and William. It's not because he sees it as a great advantage. He's proud if he sees Scotland as part of his heritage. I don't want to go on with that. I think that Hegseth and Colby taking this route, and J.D. Vance, I think they have to tread very, very carefully, because the person we're not hearing so much from, and I don't think he's idle, I think he's quite active, is Marco Rubio. And I think Marco Rubio, he has strong Latin American roots and so on, but he is a cosmopolitan. And I think that this is where Trump is like Trump presidencies are like a big circus act. You know, what next act are you going to bring in? Is it going to be the trapeze artists, the lion tamers, the clowns, or whatever? And I think that if Hegseth goes on in this way and gives the appearance, which, as you say, NBC and CNN have been picking up, that he seems to be thinking that he's smart enough to run his own policy his own way, that will annoy Trump.
And you just mentioned about the Marco Rubio. I would like to ask you about his influence. Don't you feel that he's getting more influential inside the White House?
Always has been. He's been in the background. Yeah. I think he's been very, very clever about this. Not cunning, but just a very, very capable politician. He is actually, I think, emerging, and I mention it, as the Mike Pompeo of this administration, because whatever we said about Mike and his religious views and so on, he was the one guy that could go in and say to Trump, look, boss, I don't think it's really going to work. Can we think about working this the other way? Rubio has a very, very big problem on his plate, and he has got to deal with handling Netanyahu. And I guess that when he was given the position, additionally, when Waltz went, of being really effectively the national security advisor, that is the main effort. And he's been getting on with it very, very quietly, because there is a great deal of concern, a great deal of long-term concern for Trump. Because as long as Netanyahu goes on behaving in the way that he does, it means that the Abraham Accords, which was seen as the great success of the first Trump presidency, are absolutely on ice, and they may fall away altogether. It's a very big agenda item to be dealing with. But I think that if Rubio's sanity cuts through the rhetoric of MAGA, which we've talked about probably too much, I think that we would get a stable policy towards Ukraine. But actually, following the NATO summit at the very end of last month, it's actually, and I think Rutte is doing well on this, but he's saying, look, come on, Europe. You've got to get your act together on this. You've offered resources. You're going to do this. Look what Germany's going to do. But it's now really got to mean something.
Thank you, Mr. Fox, for your time and for your support for Ukraine, and glory to Ukraine.
Slava Ukraine. Yeah. Thank you.
Героям слава. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.